Welcome to Morals Sold Separately, the podcast where the faces stay hidden, the stories don't. I'm your anonymous host, and every week we hear real, raw confessions about fraud, scams, and the kind of behavior that makes you question humanity. All stories are shared anonymously, based on real events. Some names and details may be changed to protect privacy. This isn't legal advice, it's just the truth, finally out loud. Let's get into it. For today's episode, we have Tangled Up Tessa, sharing her story. I love that alias. Now, could you give us a quick summary of what we're about to dive into today?
Well, I was married to a man and I was pregnant before I found out that he was not divorced from his first wife. We had a wedding planned. He told me that his dad had a heart attack 2 days before we were supposed to be getting married, so we canceled everything. And we just lit down and just tied the knot. Well, anyways, just so that we were married, and we figured we'd do the wedding later. And when we were planning the wedding, my family all knew about the wedding. But they were saying they weren't getting the invitations. He was saying his family was getting the invitations, so he didn't know what was going on. My dad, she mailed all the invitations out, even though she wouldn't help me. Really plan for the wedding. Do you let any? We volunteered to mail the invitations. So I'm assuming after I found out that he probably just went and threw them away. Our relationship was full of lies. When we didn't get married, it was just me, he, and then we asked somebody to go with us so that we could just have a witness at the wedding. 3 months later, I got pregnant and was finally able to talk to his parents one night while he was at work. My husband kept me separated. We lived in different states, so I really never got to talk to his parents. And at this point, I had never even met his parents in person before. I was also being raised his child from a previous marriage. But we moved to another state for my husband's job, so I had no friends, no job, and thankfully, if I was just watching the kids and staying at home. I was talking to my husband's dad one night on the phone, and when we were talking about the custody agreement of their other son, because my husband had custody of the son. He lived with us, but my husband kept telling me that there was no custody agreement in the divorce. So it's no custody agreement. I'm young, never had kids, just leave him. Then I was talking to his dad about it one night, and he said, well, he needs to get divorced first. I was shocked, but they didn't even know what to say. I confronted him when he got home. He would never admit the truth. He would never admit that she was still married. He never admitted, no matter how many times I brought it up, that she was still married. Until eventually, she had the divorce decree, which was years later. Then, he never really helped me with the kids. I did everything for the kids. Both of them. He wouldn't watch our son by himself for more than 30 minutes until we divorced. I couldn't go to the store by myself, just run to the store. He was like, let's all go. Because he wouldn't buy our kids by himself.
You mentioned being married, pregnant, and finding out about your husband's past. What was your initial reaction when you discovered he was still married?
I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. But once I found out that he was still married his first wife, so much stuff started making sense. It all started clicking. All the red flags, all the things that were happening started all clicking and falling into place.
Can you describe what it was like being kept separated from his family and dealing with the isolation?
I really didn't think much of it, being separated from his family, because we would live in different states. So, to me, I didn't see them. he would talk to him. He'd go outside and talk too long because he was always telling me that they were bitching at him or nagging at him about one thing or another, and he just didn't want me to hear it. So he always threw into the other room. But because he moved to Deborah's sake, I didn't really think much of it that he was, that we were separated. That I didn't think at the time that he was isolating me and me, purposely keeping me from his family.
Sounds like there's a lot of secrets around your wedding. Can you walk us through the moment you realized your wedding wasn't what you thought it would be?
Well, I realized the wedding wasn't gonna happen when my parents literally that day they got there. But last thing told me that his dad died. I mean, correct. But his dad had a heart attack, and that we were not going to. When we were, she was not going to get married without Zep. Which I'm like, I have family coming. I have all this stuff. I've paid for things. We have this wedding coming. Like, but I understood that he didn't want to get married without his family. That to me, that made sense. I understood that. So why, like I wasn't going to push, yes, we need to get married. Like I knew we needed to cancel everything. Not a lot of my family hadn't flown out yet, although my parents were being there that day. But it made sense. Once I found out he was married, that any sense that he lied. That whole thing, he lied. He threw away the invitations because he didn't write invitations to go out to his family. But he lied about his dad having a heart attack. Because, he was married. He couldn't get married. He couldn't have the wedding when his parents knew that he was still married and not divorced yet. Like it all made sense. So he let me sit there and plan that full wedding. Spend money, buy a wedding dress, spend money on the wedding, and it's just, it's a shock that someone could watch you go that far and then wait till 2 days before. Can't just say no. Can't do it. But when we decided to just go to get married, we're like, of him, well, we can just ringle and just get married. And then weeks later, because at the time I was in the military, and, you do get a little bit of money, he wasn't working. So you get a little bit more money if you are married. So to me, I'm like, okay, well, we'll just have a their wedding later. Not a big deal.
At what point did you start suspecting that something wasn't right in your relationship? Was it the little things adding up?
There was always, once I found out that she was not divorced, I started questioning a lot of things he would tell me. I started seeing lies, a little bit easier. But again, I stayed with him because of the children. Even Isan Humphreys' marriage, if I left, what was going to happen to him? Who was going to take care of him? Because I was the one that was helping raise him and take care of him. I was doing everything for him. So what was going to happen to him? That's what I was worried about. That's what set me with my husband as long as I was with him. Even though our marriage was never legal, never legit.
What was that conversation with his father like? And when did you find out the truth? Did you expect that revolution, or was it a shock?
Conversation with his dad was just shocking. Like, I didn't even know his dad anything. I didn't say, wait a second, we're married. What are you talking about? Like, I was just shocked. I didn't know what to say. I'm early 20s, I didn't know what to say. And I was still in mode, like, of shock. Didn't want to tell his dad. Almost didn't want to let his dad know. Get him in trouble. I had to process it. Like, I was so shocked when his dad said it. It just took me a while to be able to process it. And he was at work at the time. He was at work at the time this happened.
How do you feel when you confronted your husband and he denied everything? Was that a turning point for you?
But when I confronted my husband and he denied everything, I just couldn't believe it. That she denied it till the day, like, for several years until the divorce was final. Until his divorce was legit, we final. He said he showed me the divorce decree. He never would admit that he was still married. Ever. Even though he knew I knew, she would not admit it. He just would say, I'm not married. I'm not married. That's not true. But I just knew I couldn't trust him. I knew that I couldn't trust everything that came out of his mouth.
How did you feel when you found out he wasn't helping you with your child or even watching them for more than 30 minutes at a time? What did that do to your trust?
Yeah, only one time one time I was like, let me know the store real quick, I need to run to the grocery store. No, let's all go, because he didn't want to sit and watch the kids by himself. And, my son was still young. And he told me one time, we were both home. Yes, a husband and wife, they take turns changing diapers. They take turns doing stuff when they're both at home. If I'm like, okay, I've already changed 10 diapers today, why don't he will change one? He would though I go to the bathroom first, he would then sit in the bathroom for 20 to 30 minutes. And if my son had a poopy diaper, I was going to change it. If I'm not let him sit here in a super wet diaper or sit for a poopy diaper and get diaper rash, because he was in there for 20, 30 minutes, and he would do that all the time just because he knew I would change it, and he and I changed the diaper. But he told me one time, he said that she raised his previous son, and he was not going to do all the work and raise farce. So he legitimately made me do everything. But he didn't raise his other son. His parents helped him until I came along, and then I had help pretty much raising his son from the previous marriage.
You said you were raising his son from a previous marriage, which is already a tough situation. Did that make things harder for you when you were trying to confront him about his lies?
It was a tough situation. Like, I left his son, still love his son for a previous marriage. He lived with me even after, their dad and I got divorced. He still lived with me and my son. I took care of him. He'd see his mom on the weekend and his dad on the next weekend. I still took care of him for years. And then finally, when he got in high school, he wanted to move out. So I lived with his dad because his dad was the fun dad. And then later he regretted it because he realized it wasn't fun living with his dad. But it was hard. I really loved him like my own, then wanted to make sure that everything, I wanted to protect him as much as possible. I wanted to make sure that he had everything, that he felt loved, that he was taken care of. And again, his dad would just, even when I was divorced, his dad hardly saw the boys. He'd come pick up his oldest son, but our son, he didn't always come pick up because he was younger. We lived in the same town one time, and he went 45 days without even visiting his son. Until he had a girlfriend. His dad had a girlfriend, then he wanted to have the boys around because he wanted to show that he was this great, wonderful father. But he would pay women that would be leading to the boys. And then he wouldn't listen to me when I would try to say, like, this is what the boys are saying, but that this person's doing. Mean to him. It was hard. It was really hard because I can protect my son more than I could protect. For a stepson. But I would do my best trying to protect the looks of him.
When did you know getting a divorce was the only option? And how did you realize? How did that realization come to you?
I need a divorce was the only option. I tried getting a divorce years before I actually got a divorce. And he talked me into not leaving, staying with him, and so I did. In the end, finally, she would always, whenever we get in a fight, he'd always say, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Then he'd get in the car and he'd leave, she'd threaten to leave. No. Then he did this for years, so whenever we would fight, he'd get in the car, he'd go leave for a little while, he'd run around, and then he'd come back. Then I told him, you better stop threatening to leave me. And one day he threatened to leave. Then he got in the car and he left. Then I felt relief. I didn't want him to come back. Then when he did walk back in that house, I was dreading it. I dreaded him being back home. That's when I know it was time. That was enough. That was the turning point for me.
What was the hardest part about ending this marriage for you?
The hard start I ending the marriage was my stepson. You know, even though she did live with me, the hardest part was he did live with me, but I had always had that. If they were going to let him live with me, I'm still a chica. But if they ever wanted to say, if his parents ever want to say, no, he's ain't going to live with me, like if I had no say-so. There was little say-so that I really had in them. That was the hardest part.
After divorce, how did you manage raising your stepson on your own? Was there any healing or connection that came from that?
After I got divorced, I was fine raising those boys. I didn't want to date, I didn't want another relationship. I wanted to dive into the boys, then raising the boys, then taking care of them, then making sure they were okay and felt loved. That's all I wanted to do. Then it took years and years of healing before I ever started dating again. Because to me, the boys were my focus. They were my priority. And that's all that mattered to me.
Looking back, what's one thing you wished you'd done differently when you first discovered the lies?
One thing I would have done differently is maybe stand up for myself. Nor in a relationship, not let him just lie and push me over. Like, confront him, let him know that I knew he was lying more than I did. Because a lot of times, even when I knew it was lying, I wouldn't say anything to him. Because then he would just twist it and it would be my fault. But if I'm good, I don't know if I would have I would have done it again. I don't know if I would have left him sooner. Because if I would have left him when I was pregnant with my son, I don't think I would have been raising. And then again, I didn't have a job at the time. I would have had to move back home near my parents. And if I would have done that, I know I would not have got my stepson to come with me. At that time, I know there's no way he would be able to come with me. So I wouldn't have had him in my life this long fast. I still have him in my life, so he's not out of my life. But I got years that I wouldn't have if I would have left sooner. So I just still, to this day, don't think I would have left sooner than I did if I would change anything.
You mentioned finding closure with the divorce. How did you start healing after such a deeply hurtful experience?
Time. If it takes time to heal, everybody heals in their own time. Then there's no time when that sentence you'll be fine, you'll be healed at this time. Everybody's different. And if I had to become confident in myself again, this situation made me a stronger person because I don't put up with crap. I won't. You around people says I won't put up with people treating me bad. I just won't be around those type of people. It definitely took time for me to heal. Then it was definitely hard. Basically, this time is what helped me heal. Then getting away from him. Peeling away from him helped me kill. Because he didn't have the control over me that he did when we were married.
If you could go back and tell your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Piece of advice that I would tell myself is stand up for yourself. Don't let people push you over.
What message do you have for others who might find themselves in a similar situation?
I would say to others that are in similar situations, don't be scared to leave. Leave when you're ready to leave, but don't be scared to leave. Don't be scared that you have to have this person, because your life will be better without the struggles of this person. If you have somebody that's constantly lying to you, someone that's constantly manipulating you, you're going to be healthier and a stronger person if you leave. So don't make anyone feel when you're not worth. You have no worth. You're not good enough for someone else to love you. For you to be on your own. I think that's what I would tell somebody.
Thank you very much for coming on a show and sharing your story. And I know this story is going to help others. And I really do appreciate your strength, being brave enough to come on this show. The following episode of Moral Sleuth Separately contains true stories shared anonymously. Names and details may be changed to protect privacy. The views expressed are those of the guest and do not reflect the opinion or claims of the podcast or its producers. Listeners' discretion is advised.